Welcome back to the SpED Space podcast. I'm Nick Coletti, and today I'm joined by, excuse me, I'm already butchering this. You'll understand why in a second. Kevin Krois. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
Kevin, well, actually, I'll let you explain it a little bit. How long have you, what's your relationship to special education?
So my experience with students who have specific learning needs that are addressed through an IEP goes even back before I was a teacher, when I was working as a volunteer at a rehab center that was specialized in people who had traumatic brain injuries. And I was volunteering as a Boy Scout. It was part of my Eagle Scout project. So every Tuesday night I would go for 2 hours to work as a peer counselor, watched movies and do games and ping pong and puzzles with people who are dealing with the stresses of relearning how to live. You know, either they had a motorcycle accident or they had experienced a stroke or a seizure, and working with people who just needed someone to talk to practice talking.
Yeah.
Really. And that was my earliest. That was when I was in high school. So I guess my experience goes even with people learning differently, goes even back before I became a teacher.
So you got a degree in literature.
I do. I have a degree in English literature from UConn.
And so that translated into, you teach English.
Yes,
now.
I do.
So a question about that, I guess. I'm thinking my experience getting a degree, I got mine specifically in special education and became a special education teacher. Is getting a degree in literature or I guess a non-education, it's not an education degree, is it?
No, my degree was nothing to do with education.
So has that changed over the years? Like, do you need a degree in some kind of field of education to be a teacher now? Do you know?
So I have a master's degree in education.
Okay.
Which I got before I got my first job.
Okay.
So as part of the master's degree, I was doing an internship with Norwalk Middle School.
Okay.
And through University of Bridgeport. And they still have the same program where you teach days and at night you get your degree, and it's a long day. I hear you. It's a 5 a.m. to wake up and shower and get to work, and then it's midnight by the time you're done with classes in Bridgeport and you got to drive home.
Yeah.
So they know that, and they give you the homework is bunched up on weekends. But yeah, that's how I got my license to teach. But no, my undergraduate degree in literature wasn't specific to education.
Okay.
Though I've been teaching now, so that's at 34 years, right?
Yeah.
Along the way, school systems started asking you to be able to prove that you were highly qualified for the area you were teaching.
Okay. So
in my case, I have a degree in the area I teach, separate from my education degree.
Okay.
Other people could prove it through testing. You know, whether it was as early as an SAT test, when they first made the rule, SATs counted. Now I don't know that. I'm not sure if that's the case.
I was gonna say. I mean, I took a praxis exam, and is that essentially the same?
That would probably be one of the. There's a list of tests that they'll allow for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing, you know, because things have advanced to the point where even very young students are doing work that would require you to be an expert in the field to be their teacher. You know, if you're teaching mathematics, there's a lot of students out there who need somebody who can teach statistics, even though they may be in the 8th grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's I think partially just we're better at teaching. The kids are better at learning.
Yeah.
The tools are just so much better.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a musician, the tools to practice your music, a looping pedal didn't exist in the 60s and 70s, and now you can play over your own backing track.
I mean, I didn't even get the benefit of having YouTube. Like
how I learned on YouTube. I learned to play my guitar on YouTube.
Yeah, see, I didn't have any of that, and now I see. I mean, what's cool is I think it pushes the skill level of everyone, right? Because it's like if you were lucky enough to, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say lucky. I guess hearing of Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton back in the day, like that's a little bit more common. But nowadays, you have these guitar virtuosos that potentially never even play a show, but they're just these phenoms on YouTube, and you see what they do, and you watch them, and you're like, you start emulating them, and it raises the bar for everybody. So
yeah, I agree with that, and
it's pretty cool.
If I had started playing the guitar earlier, which I didn't start till I was 39 years old.
Yeah,
I would have had to go to the music store and buy a book, and buy a record.
Yeah,
and listen to the record and follow the book, and maybe learn the song, right?
Yeah.
And if I didn't like, that's why everyone played the same 10 songs, right? And now song comes on the radio that they, from Nashville or from anywhere, you can go on YouTube and find someone within a day who's doing it well. You can watch them and blow up the video, or someone's teaching it already.
Right.
And the really great teachers on YouTube are teaching you the different levels. There's one where there's like 5 levels of Jerry. So you want a Grateful Dead song, like here's the beginner level. You only know open chords, great. But here's if you can read a little music, or here's if you know a little theory, you can add this in. And then you can get to the point where you're fantastic. But of course you press a few buttons and you'll find somebody now playing it on a classical guitar with the proper fingering. And, wow.
Yeah.
How far can you go? Well, take that musical addiction that anyone who plays has, put it into math.
Yeah.
There's kids out there who go on, the Khan Academy or YouTube, and they just say, I want to learn calculus in grade school. And they do.
I know.
Right? They do.
I'm tutoring a kid right now, and he's a very bright student. And I was helping him get ready for the math testing to test into, the advanced placements. And it was easy. And so we he's a younger kid. We bumped it up to like 8th, 9th grade math.
Sure.
Just because he just genuinely enjoyed it.
See how far we can go.
Yeah. And he was just enjoying it and problem solving it and just figuring things out. I mean, it was, it was a fun experience.
YouTube example is a non-example because you're not even talking about a program that's doing diagnostics in real time and adjusting to the student's skill set and praising them for their gamifying it. Yeah. Where there's that beautiful sweet spot if it's challenging enough that you don't get bored and not so challenging that you get frustrated.
Yeah.
Right.
What's interesting though, just so tying this back to the idea of being highly qualified. I don't think I ever actually mentioned this to you. Full disclosure again. So we Kevin and I have worked together. I also was Kevin's student many years ago.
So we worked together then as well.
Yes, exactly. So I got to work alongside him and work in his classroom as well. But the highly qualified teacher thing. So when I was working in Hawaii, I think my first year, they put out an email to all the teachers and said, if anybody has any electives, any courses that they would like to offer, we would like to potentially offer the classes for the kids. And so you've heard of I think if you tighten that one up.
I just want to.
Yeah, go ahead. We could, No, I mean, get it tight so you don't have to keep doing it. Yeah, go ahead.
That'll get edited out.
That's getting it loosened. I think.
Am I doing the wrong way?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, now make it nice. We can edit it. Like I said, totally fine.
Sorry about that.
No worries. You get comfortable. You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So I don't think I ever mentioned this, but back when I was teaching in Hawaii, they sent out an email asking if anybody had any electives that they would like to teach. And it could be, they were really open, and I put out an idea and I said, the electronic music program.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically I offered to teach that. But I said, if we do that, we need to have the pianos. We have to have the computers.
Yeah. There's a lot of equipment to start up.
They did it. They bought it all, which was, they had some kind of grant and they did it and it was awesome. And I taught 6th, 7th and 8th graders in the same class. I had like 2 or 3 classes of it, 20 kids in a class, all on keyboards, all with their own computers. Like everybody got their own setup. And basically took kids that had a lot of them had musical experience, but even some that didn't, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, where they were able to write full pieces of music, which is really cool. They wanted to keep running with the program. I'm not a music educator. I don't have a degree in music. And so they wanted me to take the test to be highly qualified to get certified. And, I was like, okay, full disclosure, I can't read music.
Yeah, then you find out what you don't know.
Yeah.
And learn, knowing enough to know that what you don't know is how Neil deGrasse Tyson describes it, right?
Right.
The dangerous people are the ones who don't know enough to know what they don't know. Well, so that's the day you learned what you don't know.
Well, I was like, can't we look at how my young 6th graders who never even touched the piano before look at their full pieces of music that they're writing?
Yeah, it's great stuff,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. I grabbed a practice version of the test, and it played a clip from some Baroque music, and it was like, who composed this, and in what year did they compose it? I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's tough.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you could do that with like Zeppelin, but I'm like, I have no idea. And I was like, there's no way I can study for this and take it. And it also was going to jeopardize my special education certification because they wanted me to start doing that full time because it picked up, like that. So just an interesting component of becoming a highly qualified teacher in that context. Could I teach the course content and be successful? Absolutely. Could I pass the test to teach it? No, absolutely not.
So the one field in education that has sort of paid homage to the fact that you can do it, but maybe never took a class in it, is the industrial arts section.
Okay.
Where if you were a contractor for X amount of years, that's going to count as highly qualified. And in fact, you're not going to get a job at any of the state technical schools without having that experience.
Yeah.
One of my nephews attended a school in Bridgeport through the sister schools there, where they're a magnet school for Bridgeport, Trumbull, and a few other schools in the area. He took he went to the engineering school. So, and it was run by a guy at the time, he may still be there, who was the commander of a nuclear submarine.
Okay.
So he knew engineering.
Right.
Because he had been in the world's most complex piece of equipment, right? Not only is it a nuclear power plant, but it's underwater and it's silent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it could explode.
Yeah.
Really loud.
Yeah.
So, there's a point where I can get you excited about physics, but I'm not a physics teacher.
Right.
Because I know enough. I took a bunch of physics and loved it. Yeah. But I really can't help that kid in the room with those 3 or 5 kids who've already geeked out on YouTube and have already passed their own online courses. So you need to be there for them. So we definitely need that person who gets you the generalist, gets you excited about learning, and brings you to the point where they can't go beyond.
Yeah.
Right. And generally speaking, that's an elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
Not always.
Well, and that's
often it's a special educator.
And actually, that's one of the reasons we just discussed before about having you on. It's one of the reasons why I wanted you on. You are excellent at building rapport with kids. I remember, I don't have the best memory in the world, just throwing that out there. However, your class, I always remembered throughout my entire life, and for a multitude of reasons we'll get into, but one of the main things is I just genuinely enjoyed being in your classroom. And I wanted to just kind of pick your brain on that because I'm sure people that are listening, whether they're an educator or whether they're a parent of a student that has special needs or just a parent of a kid who's in school, what do highly successful teachers do? How do they create an environment? How do they interact with their students that creates such a positive and long-lasting impression on them? I think right off the bat, one of the things that I that I didn't learn about, I don't know if you did, and I'm curious as if you did. I worked in education for a few years before I got my first teaching gig, and I get to my classroom. It's the week before the school year starts, and my room's empty, and then I realize my room is empty. And I have to set it up, right?
An empty room sounds really kind of nice right now.
Yeah. But then, as a first,
it's scary.
I'm looking at paperwork. I'm already reading IEPs because I'm a special education. And then it kind of dawns on me like, oh, these kids are going to show up in a couple days, and I need to have the room ready. You are, and I didn't receive any training on that. I don't know if you ever received training on setting up a classroom, but you have a very unique room. The very first thing, actually, it might not be the first thing you notice, but once you're in your room for about 5 minutes, I think the biggest thing you'll notice that I think you're the only teacher that I've ever seen do this is you don't have a desk.
Yeah, I don't have a teacher's desk for 14 or 15 years now.
Yeah. Why is that?
It's just the whole spatial flow of the thing for me.
Yeah.
And I'm really an up close teacher. Not sort of at the board. I'm comfortable being at the board, and there's a place for that where, there's this new thing and the kids don't know it yet. So you've got to show them, And today, because we have these beautiful resources like smart boards, and because we have the YouTube, and because we have TED Talks, mostly it comes in the form of a video, a colorful graph, a chart, and a set of vocabulary. There's time for that. I did a bunch of that today, just sort of me at the board, but eliciting fan, doing crowd work like a comedian, walking. But for me, even when I'm at the board, I have a mouse that's wireless. I have a keyboard that's wireless, and I walk around. and I sit down with different groups of kids, or I hand them to the different groups of kids and sort of interact. I do a lot of close work, to put it in comedic terms.
Yeah.
And that's because we have this social space. Like, we're in it right now. You know, you and I are you're not more than 5 feet apart, right? You get to 6 or 8 feet and you're not in an intimate space anymore. And by that, I mean, you're not sharing your air. You're not sharing your space. Your body language isn't really visible. So when I ask a question of somebody, if I'm 20 feet away, I'm really not asking them. I'm asking the room. But if I'm within that range, I'm asking them. And if their answer is, they're not really that confident about their answer, shouting it across 25 feet, especially when you're 12 or 13 years old, or when it's your first day in a new country, or it's a new language, or it's music and everyone else seems to be better than you. Just when you're in a position where you're not as confident, that's not going to happen for most of us. You know, that's a huge leap of faith and trust to shout out wrong answer across a room of people. Yeah. But to try out an idea with somebody who's sitting with you in that space is easy. It's what we do all day.
Yeah.
You know, I tell students all the time, we're writing a narrative, we're writing a story, and you're good at it. And most of my students will argue they're not. But the point is, you come home from wherever, from sports, from work, from a vacation, and the first thing you do is you tell the story. You know, and it's interesting because we're all storytellers. It's the most human thing to do. But that's a close-up thing. That's around the fire with a few friends. That's, you know, this in the cave. You're not telling the story out of the cave. You got to be in that cave. So I really did get rid of that desk. I didn't like it. It also smacked of command structure. You know, me on a dais, me behind a big metal desk. Or even when they went, because I did actually teach, my first desks were off battleships. They're World War II surplus. They're all kind of looking things.
Every school that I've ever worked at, they're giant metal wood. Like, I mean, they're sturdy. They're sturdy pieces of furniture that seem like they're from the 60s or something.
Yeah, I think they built to last kind of stuff. Of course.
Of course. They're good quality. Yeah. But they are intimidating.
But then of course, what do you put on it? You know, you've got a monitor now. You've got a laptop now. You've got a stack of textbooks or papers, because we still deal with those things, not nearly as much as we used to.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, because they're not as on point or interactive. But you've got this wall, a physical block between you and the other humans, and I don't like it. It was not my style. And my attention wanders if I'm not involved with the people I'm with. And the last thing I need is space, because I'm going to be in my own space.
Right.
As an educator, I owe it to my class to be in their space the whole time, I think. And there are teachers who can do that with their voice. There are teachers who are masters with their smartboard from their desk setup. I think of a lot of music teachers and how they teach, and they can't walk through the orchestra the whole time.
Right.
They could in a small ensemble, and they do, but they can't. When the orchestra is on the stage, they have to be up front where everybody can see them. So it's not that it's bad pedagogy to teach from a desk. It's just not the way I work well, right? So I think that's one of the things that kids do remember, is that I was with them. You know, I had one student say to me, "You never yelled at us when we were goofing around. You sat with us when we were goofing around." And it just felt different. And I think that's what he's saying. When you're an anonymous, you're the teacher when you're at a distance. You're a person when you're not.
This was obviously not an overnight thing. This was a gradual thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So was it kind of the case where you kind of discovered you weren't really utilizing the desk, or was it just at some point you're like, hey, let me just get rid of this thing?
Well, I had the opportunity to sort of, you know, one of the wonderful things I've had the opportunity to do is see hundreds of educators teach.
Yeah.
Because I go in other people's rooms randomly. And I think that's like an intentional thing for me again. Like I'll probably say it a few more times while we're talking. I have a wandering attention span. You know, I get bored easy. I get excited easy. But for me, sitting in my room on my free period, if I've got papers to grind, I do. You know, but if I've got stuff that I could do a little of this, a little of that, I'd like to just walk into somebody else's room and watch them teaching. I've been fortunate enough to have colleagues who allow that and encourage that. And really, it's not on them. Nobody's expected to let Mr. Krois walk into their room while they're teaching.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of colleagues who were encouraging of it, and I've learned a lot from them. And one thing I noticed that was that the styles that seemed to be most what I would want were the styles where the person was up and around. They were up and around, moving through the rows. And sometimes it was read alouds, and sometimes it was, handing out whiteboards where people could hold them up, or games that involved cards, or moving. If you vote for this question, if you think the answer is this, go over here, go over there. The movement, voting by your feet, they call it. Mm-hmm. That stuff just turned me on. So I started saying, let's get into that, and how can I do that? I also have taught in a lot of different rooms, and with a large disparity of numbers of students, right? So sometimes you teach an elective class. As an English teacher, you can teach one out. So you can teach anything 1 period a day in Connecticut. Yeah. Outside your license. So I've taught a lot of different things because a principal will say to me, you're great with kids who need somebody who thinks differently. What do you want to teach? And I've done some social studies. I've done some guitar. I've done some woodworking with kids in different schools that I've worked, different programs, summer programs and elective programs. And those spaces just aren't desk spaces, right? Yeah. You're in the woods. You're building something out of wood in a summer program. There's no desk. And if there is, it's shared. It's a shared space. Somebody's using the bench for the vice, right? And yeah. It's a shared space. So I really do like to have that set up, that this is a shared space, like a workshop, like a physical industrial arts. Back in my day, we used to call that workshop. That's really interesting to hear. The kids that would get invited to do things like that with you, are those typically kids that are kind of the in-between phase or I guess the intervention stage of behavior or anything like that? Or is there anything specific there? Well, I've probably been involved in programs over 3 decades doing this.
Yeah, and I've seen you do it with kids before, in a different capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what it tends to be are students who are just not traditional learners.
Yeah.
And that sometimes the identification process for that is not comfortable.
Right.
I being one myself and you being one yourself.
Yeah.
And I think everybody is a non-typical learner. And it sounds a little bit Pollyanna. But the truth is, if I gave you the all the money in the world and all the time in the world and told you what would your perfect day of learning look like, you could design something. And for you, there's a lot of physical fitness in that. There's a lot of music, and then there's a lot of just time with other people to talk about what they're interested in. And you could build a whole school around your way of learning. But if I took you out of your best school and put you in someone else's, they had the same thing. They had the same challenge. They had the same day. And I put you in theirs, you might just be the one who gets in trouble, who acts out, because you don't know about quiet work for 3 hours in the morning, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because for them, that's right. And for you, it's not. I always joked if I had 2 years to learn algebra, I would have got an A. Yeah. But I had 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to take it twice, right?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I never felt bad about that. I just I learned math slower than other people.
Yeah.
But I really remember it once I learn it, and I can use it most of the time. And I really enjoy it. It's not easy. Like music, it does not come easy to me, but I really enjoy it. So I think everybody is that person who's in the wrong school for them.
Yeah.
Because really, that's how humans learn, their way. You can't run a city that way. You can't run a country that way. You can't run a classroom that way. There's more than one person here. There's got to be a give and take. And the students who tended to come to those programs, to get back to your original question, it's a long way around.
No, you're good. You're good.
To get to that question is, these are students whose way of learning in general didn't fit into the electives that were being offered at that program. Of course, I'm talking about multiple schools, multiple decades.
Yeah.
And they were excellent in the areas they were excellent in. We all have known students who get straight A's in PE, and their gym teacher and their coach who coaches them after school says, "This is the best kid I ever taught."
Yeah.
And then you talk to one of you talk to
one of the most frustrating kid ever in math or something.
Yeah. Because in the room where you are uncomfortable,
the
room that's not learning the way you learn, it is hard to be a solid citizen.
Yeah. I think that's such a good thing for if you can, as an educator, though, like having both sides of that. That's a very typical it's a common trope, right? You
Yeah.
have a kid who's excellent in PE and not so much in the classroom, right? That's why I think it's really important for educators to be well-rounded.
Yeah, 100%.
I think you have to have an interest in at least at a minimum level in something artistic. And
so that's the balance with that earlier question about highly qualified.
Yeah.
So, I'm a parent as well, and, from a very big family. So I've seen a lot of different learning successes and struggles.
Yeah.
Just even my own people who I love, and not just people who I really appreciate, which is most everybody. But so you're just getting to the point where personal learning style doesn't match the environment, or it does. So how do we change that environment? How do we change that learning style? You just can't. I think I lost the thread there a little bit.
No,
Bring me
it's
back.
Well, no, I got you. I was actually going to lead into the next thing. This is all about rapport.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So building rapport.
And it's not.
So, I got it. So just to finish that up, edit that or not.
No.
Your choice.
You're good.
While it's true, I want my family, my kids, my cousins, my nephews, nieces, myself to be in a room with a generalist who can go in the direction I'm going in to meet me where I am. I don't want that when I'm a senior studying biology and I want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I need someone who knows doctor level, Harvard level biology.
Yeah.
And if that person also wants to talk to me about, my crazy hobbies, even better.
It's a good point. Point.
There's room for generalists.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely a need for those specialists.
I guess the context here is both you and I have spent the majority of our careers working in middle schools.
Yeah, which is that it's not a caterpillar, it's not a butterfly, it's that stuff in between.
Yeah. That awkward
Like it's a gooey, weird looking thing stuck on the tree.
But that is the age that we do that sets up a lot of kids for their future. I
think it can.
It's not all, but I think it really. I think by 8th grade, you're really helping the kids that are on the path that they want to be on. You're helping them get there a little bit quicker. And I think by 8th grade, if that makes sense. So
there's this great study that I always bring up. In this context, I wish I could name the study, but I don't have.
Figure it out.
I don't have any notes at all. Where they asked questions of two very diverse cultural groups. They asked American mothers, and they asked mothers from, I believe it was South Korea.
Okay.
At what age can you tell if your child is going to do well in college? And what do you think the answers were?
They're different, I'm assuming.
They're different. They're vastly different.
I feel like the U.S., I want to say 14.
Okay.
I want to say 14. I think that's like what I think. American mothers, 17.
So in the United States, the mothers' answers, I think it was just mothers, were closer to 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
And in Korea, I think it was in South Korea, the answer was senior year of high school, because you can make a mistake and it'll ruin everything. That you don't know. There's nothing guaranteed.
Do they have to test in like Japan?
That's a great question. I think that it's a given that international college was available. Because American college is the gold standard pretty much, unless you're going to go to Oxford. Or something. There's lots of international schools that are fantastic, but really when you're talking about Johns Hopkins and Harvard and Yale, this is where the world comes to school.
So 10 is, just for some context, that's 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah. And the thing
is,
we have a myth in America. Of and it goes way back to our founding. It goes way back to the Puritan beliefs that founded America, that you're born inherently good, inherently intelligent, inherently, likable, or whatever, name the category, or you're not. And that life is just finding out if you're one of the elect or you're not. So that's why Oliver Cromwell was asked to leave England. because this notion is pretty rigid, that you're born, chosen to be great at something, or you're not. And that is one of our founding myths of America. Now, of course, that's generational waves ago. That's hundreds of years ago. But one of the American myths, we have this bootstrap myth that you can come from nothing and become super successful, but we also believe it's because you were born smart. Not that you achieved smart.
Yeah.
You can achieve greatness, but you're born smart. But most of the world doesn't think you're born smart. You become smart. You learn habits. You learn techniques. You learn facts. You have teachers, right? Is Luke Skywalker what he is because of Ben, or without Ben Kenobi, would he have been Luke Skywalker?
I think smart and dumb are such dangerous words.
Yeah, they really are.
I think they're such dangerous
because
words.
they're identity words.
And it's like the second you call somebody smart, and it's meant in a good way. There's nothing. It doesn't mean there's no negative connotations with it. But the second you start telling someone that they're smart, it's kind of like, okay, I'm done.
I don't have to be anything else because I can turn on the smart later.
Right. Like, I got it. I'm good.
Hardworking is a conditional, right? You're hardworking. That can stop the minute you stop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, right? I think that's such, I think it's really key when you're working with kids. Like, yeah, you're going to work with smart kids. I'm not saying it's not a thing that exists, right? You're going to work with kids that struggle, but it's, you got to like get that out of your head.
And I think we're doing a good job of getting away from the word gifted.
Yeah.
Amongst our achieving students, highly achieving students, and getting towards advanced.
Yeah.
Because you can become advanced.
Absolutely.
You can't become gifted. Gifted is given to by whom?
Yeah.
The Magi? Who gave you the gift?
When I was in high school, I felt every single year, not that I was a great student, but I felt like every single year I really struggled with the work that I was doing that year. But the following year, I'd have it down like that.
Yeah, that's a 2 years of algebra thing.
Right. Yeah.
It just takes me longer.
It was like, fine.
So what?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a black belt?
Yeah. Takes a long time.
No one asks how long.
Yeah.
There's not a mark for how long it took on your belt.
Yeah.
There's really not.
But however, I mean, just in that context, it's sometimes though when someone says it's a little, if it's like shorter than it should be, you definitely get judged a little bit more. I gotta say.
Oh, yeah, there's that. There's what was your sense of your mom?
Exactly.
Which is true for somebody.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
But I would I know nothing about martial arts. I know nothing. Yeah. It's just the gym and I are barely acquaintances, right? But I would imagine that if you have a student who's very seriously interested in becoming an advanced level martial artist, their father, their uncle, whoever runs a dojo, would not let them train there.
It's usually,
would say you can start here, but to get better, you have to go.
There's that, or
there.
Typically they're usually held back a lot more. You at least in
you have to really prove it.
Yeah, which is for a kid sometimes it's more difficult.
Doesn't sound right.
But you know what though, as an adult, you see so much more value in it because what you don't want to happen, and I think you can equate this to getting a degree. When you get a degree, you want to be proficient. You want to be more than proficient. You want to be good at what you're doing, right? You want to know your stuff. And obviously, you're going to realize that you don't know anything because you're going to go into the actual field and get the experience and then learn something, right? So when it comes to something like a martial arts belt, like in my context, jiu-jitsu, my experience, when I got my black belt, I knew that I was a solid black belt. I wasn't like, what happens with a lot of people is they'll feel like they feel like a fraud. They feel like they didn't deserve it.
That's an interesting concept too. We'll get back to the imposter syndrome later. In the conversation.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I personally feel imposter syndrome all the time. It takes me a while to like be okay with things and putting myself out there.
Again, because you weren't born with it.
Yeah.
So you must be fake.
Yeah.
Because achieving it is not something we talk enough about.
Well, it's also subjective.
We're starting to do better though. Like I really do see growth mindset came up when my own kids were in high school. It was it wasn't a new concept in the world, but the constant use of it in schools was beginning.
Yeah.
That we just got to put the word yet at the end of things.
Yeah.
You're not an A on this essay yet. Your story's not finished yet. And if we can put that word at the end of things, like your life isn't successful yet. No one's is. Like you can't judge a person's works until they're done with them.
Yeah.
And then they don't care because they're gone.
Yeah. Coming back to the rapport thing, it's not just the kids that you make, that you have great rapport with. Something else that I loved that you do, I'm hoping you still do, is you have everyone in your room for lunch.
Yeah, we have a lunch.
For the teachers, I should say.
We have a lunch. One
staff.
of the secrets to rapport and having everyone in your room for lunch is you have to have a sink and a refrigerator and a microwave.
It does help.
So teaching in the old home ec room is really nice.
Yeah, but I love that you do that. I mean, you would have to have.
Well, we had Crock-Pot Friday where we would make chili or something, or we'd make soup. Yeah,
I looked forward to lunch every single day. It was like usually historically what I do is I warm up my food, I go back down to my room and I work, right?
Yeah.
I just work and I eat and I work and I work. It was nice to take a half hour out of the day with the rest of the team and just relax.
Well, one of the hard parts of any job, I suppose, never really having a real job other than education in a building. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs. Like I've done a lot of things. I started working when I was 13, punching a clock, because there was no computer to tell them I wasn't 14.
Right.
So, but the point is, you can only socialize for a very small slice of your day as a teacher. You just don't have the time. You're working. Yeah, there's no free time. Even when it says non-instructional on your schedule, you're at a meeting, or you're prepping for a meeting, or you're answering emails, or you're grading papers, or you're observing another teacher teach if you're lucky, because that's something that we get to about 15th on our list of things to do today.
Yeah.
But there's that little bit of lunchtime. But then again, you don't get to choose who shares that time with you. So you get what you get in terms of friends at work when you're a teacher, the people who have the same free period as you, and maybe use a copier at the same time as you, and maybe the people park near you. You might see them at the end of the day for 5 minutes. But there's that lunchtime, and we did move towards planfully having more of that in our jobs and education, I think in general, but certainly where I'm working. But still, there are people who don't have that lunchtime, and you don't get to eat with them. So one thing that, and this goes back to your rapport question, like, first of all, it's a little weird to hear I'm so good at something, right? Because we don't like to talk about ourselves.
I understand, but you are.
But one of those things is whoever has that time should be part of that group, right? Everybody's part of it.
Yeah.
Right? I've often been the weird guy. I've often been the new guy. We all have, right?
Yeah.
But you just can't say, well, let's 4 of us have lunch and not tell anyone.
Right.
Right. And I think throughout my career in the multiple different schools, multiple different staffs I've worked with, that's always been the way I saw it. And I think that's expands to my treatment of students and parents alike. You don't choose who's us. Us is everybody who's in the room today.
Yeah.
And everybody's welcome who can be. And you also understand that not everybody can be.
Yeah.
Or wants to be.
Yeah.
But they're welcome too.
Well, that's where
that's where some of that rapport starts.
That's where you have the other people on the teams who kind of like, pressure them into coming to lunch and whatnot.
Yeah.
You just open the doors. Everyone else is like, get over to Kevin's room.
Well, it's nice sort of, I think I'm the oldest man in the building at this point in my career, which gives you a lot of power.
Okay.
It's weird. No, it's true. It's true.
Okay.
It's true. It's not power like traditional power. It's, everyone has daddy issues, but when you have a white beard, grandpa kicks in, right? I stopped being everyone's dad and eliciting those reactions. I started being everyone's grandfather recently in the last 5 years or 6 years. And it's a whole different power set because people will not take you on for no reason. Like there's this whole, we worked with a lot of guys in our career and which is not traditional to have a large population of men in a middle school.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or in a grade school.
I was for several years, I believe I was the only service provider in the district that I was working in that was male at the middle school.
Right.
For like 1 or 2 years, I was the only male.
So being the guy in the room often through education, you have to be really cognizant of what that means.
Yeah.
That there are people who don't know you and you may even intimidate, right? You're you're into martial arts and you're a strong looking guy, and those things are a type of power, but that's a type of power that attracts and repels.
Yeah.
Students, staff, other human beings just walking down the street, right? So as you get a little older, and I'm in that phase of my career where you're Gandalf the gray, you're not white yet, but you're there. You're past the, what's this guy looking at? What are you looking at, buddy?
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I get, do you need help with something? Right?
Yeah.
So that's very powerful because the power now is that you're allowed into people's workings more.
Yeah.
There's less of that standoffishness that comes with that who's the alpha in the room kind of competition.
Yeah.
When you're out of that competition, it's very freeing.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying that. I've been I wish I was older longer earlier.
Yeah.
Because for me, I slowed down a bit. I'm not as nervous about things. I'm not as worried about things because I've sort of got my hurdles behind me somewhat.
Yeah.
Which is nice. That's, again, a position of power to have that. It's not just experience teaching or just experience in literature or whatever. It's that when things go poorly, you've been there. You can draw on that experience.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about that is a little bit more personal for me is holding people accountable.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that a little bit before.
So just a little context, super quick. When I was in 8th grade in Kevin's class, Mr. Krois' class, English class.
I have 2 names. No one uses my first name. Pretty much no one.
Yeah.
It almost makes my wife jealous if people call me by my first name.
Okay.
They just call me Krois.
Krois. Yeah, fair enough.
It's when you have one of those names that no one else has.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess other people have it. There's my brother calling me now. He also has the name. But it's sort of like if your name starts with a Z, everyone calls you Z-Man.
Yeah.
We've all known a guy.
Yeah.
I have one of those 1-syllable last names.
Yeah. So I think just to navigate this tactfully, I'll give my story and then I'll give the kind of the whole thing. So basically, when I was in your class in 8th grade, I was you had assigned us to write a paper. And I was absent all the time. So let me just preface with this. I'm sure you communicate. You were this is entirely my fault, 100%. But I didn't realize that we were going to be sharing these papers with the class. And you won't believe this. I haven't. This is check this out.
Here comes the secret.
When I was helping clear out my.
Oh no, he's got the paper.
Dude, I got it. I don't know why it was saved. But here is the paper. I'm not. You're not reading that, and we're not reading that.
No, I don't have time.
Okay. But that might be a stack of things. I think there's the feedback from and I think we had feedback from each other. But so I wrote this paper, and it is I didn't realize that we were going to be sharing it. So we walked into class that day, and it was done. You can see it's not graded because I never turned it into you. Because we were as people were turning it in, we were reading it to the class, and I was like, I'm not going to read it to the class, right? I didn't share this with you because I didn't have the confidence to. I didn't even have the. I don't even think I had the internal ability to go speak to a teacher. So that wasn't
right.
If I were to speak to any teacher, it would have been you. And even that, I was just, I was so over.
A personal thing.
No. But what I'm saying is it was just so over because we were talking about rapport and everything. And I feel like I loved your class.
You just spent 20 minutes telling people I have great rapport. And now you're telling me you're scared to talk to me.
I was scared to lie to you.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
That's different.
Yeah. So I had to basically just lie and say that I didn't do the paper. And cause I was not reading it. I wrote it about, it was a video game, fanfic, whatever. And it was just,
fan fiction. And
it was
big genre now.
But, and I mean, I put a lot of time into it. This is a lot for 8th grade Nick. I'll tell you that. And, so long story short, I didn't turn the paper in. I got an F, rightfully so, because I didn't do the work. Technically, I didn't turn it in.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, I can't grade what I can't see. I say that every day.
Yeah.
I wish I could give credit for people who had skills that I didn't see, but I can only see what's on the paper.
But it was a blessing in disguise because this sent me down a path of eventually earning an F in your class, which I should have, and when I was in high school, I eventually got some special education testing done and got identified for having a disability, which was funny enough, a writing disability. And I definitely it's very apparent, right?
Sure.
Looking back at it, it's like, man, I really struggled with writing, and having my own ideas and the whole 9 yards. But I don't think that would have happened, or at least the likelihood of that happening was a lot lower if you had not held me accountable for my work, which was a lack of work, right? Like I was not participating in the class and ultimately learned an F. The reason I'm asking is I feel like in today's society, people are very afraid to fail. And I don't just mean this in the context of an F in a class, but I mean in general. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, you from what I'm aware, you've always held people accountable in a very positive way. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong in terms of this, but you're as far as resolving issues, you're big into the conflict resolution. What was the kind of it was a specific kind of conflict resolution?
We use a PBIS system, which is
that. There's that, but I mean, you also have it was like the approach to it, right? It was I am blanking out right now. It was like bringing everyone together, discussing what happened, and having a proper like natural kind of consequence.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, restorative practices is one way to say it or look at it.
Yeah. But I guess just kind of your thoughts on earning the grade that you earned.
I think that it goes back to a couple of things we talked about. This is a really nice way to wrap up a bunch of what we talked about.
Yeah.
Which is if we put that word yet at the end of things, like this is an F for now, but and I can remember telling you, well, when you come in, we can have you do it and I will grade it.
Yeah.
But I can't give credit for not doing things, right?
Yeah.
And if we all saw that, that growth mindset that right now I'm at a 1 and I'm looking for a 5, but I'm at a 1 now, that finding out you're at a 1 when you think maybe you're at a 4, or that's horrible.
Yeah.
But is it? I mean, isn't that where you walk into the dojo? Isn't that when you pick up your first guitar? Isn't that when you go on your first date and make a fool of yourself? Isn't that the start?
Yeah.
Is doing it wrong and then going to the next level. Of course, if you don't hold somebody accountable for low quality work, they think they're done.
Yeah.
And we're back to that labeling people as gifted, smart, capable, and therefore they don't have to work.
Yeah.
Because life is supposed to be handed to them somehow. It's going to work out in the end. It doesn't.
Yeah.
If you don't learn, I know a lot of successful people and I know a lot of really intelligent people, and not all are the same people, right? And if you're a linguist and you speak 4 or 5 languages and you're great at math and you love sports and you're just good with people, yes, you have a much better chance at being successful, however you define it, because you have a big toolbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
But helping kids find that where their power tools are is partially you're not a great writer yet.
Yeah.
If you want to be, it's a long road and I can help you go down it. And that's my job, certainly in middle school, but even now as an adult. But how much time do you want to put in? Because I'm always telling students will say to me, can I rewrite this? And I'll say, well, you have an 84. What's your goal?
Yeah.
Like, well, can I rewrite it? I say, well, I'm not answering your question because I don't know what you're asking.
Yeah.
Do you want, you have an 86. You want 4 more points? You can call it an A, not a B. Or do you really want to learn how to use dialogue more correctly? Or do you really want to learn how to write a flashback? Because really, I'm here for the second one. I'm not really here for the points game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And nor was I giving you an F because for that I had some vendetta or was angry at you or that you had missed X amount of classes, right? That's not what it's about. So giving work accurate feedback with or without a number or a letter on it is really an important part of what we do for people. And holding people accountable to high standards in our lives is the best gift we can give them, right? My wife and I have been together a long time. We love each other a lot. We do not let each other do stupid things, right? If we say, look, this is a bad choice.
Yeah.
This is, don't keep this job. Don't sell this thing. Don't buy this thing. Don't eat this. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
We care about each other enough to say, this is not the you that you should be, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that often because we're pretty perfect,
Yeah.
No, not really. But the truth is, as teachers, we get to be and we have to be in a lot more of those moments than we do with our spouses, our parents, our friends, because those are fully actualized adults at this point in our lives, and they've figured it out.
Yeah.
They really have. And just like every baby cries when it's hungry and cold, and we understand what they're saying, most adults, we understand them. But the kids we teach in school, they're just all over the place with that. They haven't learned how to express themselves. They haven't learned to follow their talents. They haven't learned to believe in the process yet.
Yeah.
Right. They're still, they believe that I'm an athlete, not a scholar, or I'm not good at math, so I'm not going to pass this class. Well, no one's born good at math.
Yeah.
There are people for whom it comes easier maybe, but no one's born doing calculus. You have to learn it somewhere. So yeah, I think that holding someone accountable gets a bad rep sometimes.
Oh yeah.
You're taking away privileges. You're not giving them a reward. You're making them feel bad about themselves. You're labeling them. Well, it can be that if you're doing it randomly or out of a position of just random power or authority. But if you really do care about somebody, you have to ask them for more if they're not giving you what they can give you. Of course, you wouldn't. Then again, you're not asking for more from somebody who's doing their best.
Yeah.
Right? There's a difference there, right? Knowing and knowing which is hard.
I was just going to ask you, how do you figure that out? I mean, sounds like a lot.
Well, you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Teaching, parenting, brothering, fathering, whatever you're doing, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So you really have to go into it willing to make the mistakes that hurt you, not the other person. Right. And I think that's where sometimes grade inflation comes into that as a teacher, that you don't know if this is an 89 or a 90.
Yeah.
Because it's poetry, so you're going to give it the 90 because you don't know. Like you're shaving hairs at that point. But to some kid, the A- is so much different than the B+.
Yeah.
Right. So really, I'm not teaching quantum physics. I'm teaching poetry and literature. So a half a point somewhere, I'm going to always give it to the kid. Right.
Yeah.
You magnify that times 1,000 small decisions, and you do have a little bit of a grade inflation, a creep there, because you've had 50 assignments, you've given a point here and there, and a scientist will say you've got magnification of error. That's what they call it in physics.
Okay.
So there is a magnification of error, but because I'm always making the error that would benefit the student, not harm the student. Not everyone's as nice as you and clear cut as not handing in the papers. It's very easy to hold them accountable.
I was not reading that thing to people.
So I think there's that. Holding people accountable is really important, but using the minutia, drilling down that far isn't important. Points here, points there. That's not what we're in it for.
Yeah.
We're much more, can you do this thing or not? Can you do a backflip? No, good. Don't try, right? Because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Can we put you in a situation where you can learn to do one? Probably. But that's a long process. Do you have the time, right? Nobody in the world is going to fault me for telling them they shouldn't do a backflip. If I'm a gymnastics coach and you come out and say, and I tell you today, some of the students are doing backflips on the balance beam, you shouldn't try it. Everyone's going to say, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, if the rest of the world, if we saw ourselves in that honest light in more situations, I think we'd be better. I'm not doing it today, but can you teach me how to do that?
Right.
Well, yeah, we'll put some tape on the floor. We'll get some mats. We'll maybe put you on a harness. They put me on a diet. Then we'll talk, right? There's ways to get there.
I was going to ask you this question to kind of wrap up, but I think I want to change it a little bit. I was going to ask, you've been teaching a long time. You've been very successful at what you do. What advice would you give a day one brand new teacher? But I'm going to change that.
Okay.
Same context, but what advice would you give? This could be to any teacher, regardless of how new or not, that needs to hold people accountable, but are worried about any kind of backlash from parents, teachers, school, kids, whatever. How do you navigate that and while keeping your integrity and keeping the students' best interests at heart?
Well, it's a great question. And I'm fortunate to have had it answered by one of the best educators in history, Kim Marshall. So I was at a seminar in Houston where Mr. Marshall was speaking, and he was saying that the days of a paper grade book are long behind us. And this was more than a decade ago. Therefore, you literally could let a student on the last day of school demonstrate a skill in your class that you taught on the first week of school. And you can go back to your grade book and with the press of a few buttons, change his grade or her grade and it would change the first quarter, it would change their average in the first semester, it would change their average across the year. But if honestly, and we'll use our balance beam, the kid gets up on the beam and does a backflip and lands it, you have to say at the end of the course that they are capable of doing that skill. Now, in the days of the paper grade book and the mailed report card that came out 3 times a year, 4 times a year, there was no way to take that back, change those documents, go into everyone's homes and write over them. But we do have that ability. He encouraged educators to just put it in a different color ink on the grade book. Demonstrated in the first quarter, demonstrated during the lesson unit, black. Demonstrated later or by a short amount of time, green, red. Demonstrated, but you can just remember real quick when, so that we can adjust our instruction to fit that kid's timeline. Like we were saying, it took 2 years of algebra, fine. It took you 2 years, but here's your A in algebra.
Yeah.
Not an F and an A and you have a C average. Because the truth is you can do algebra now. Why don't you have an A? Because the grades should theoretically represent your skill level at present. But they don't. They represent the journey across the time, and we're rewarding someone for being perfect the whole time. So the only way to do that is to cheat or to take courses that are too easy for you. And neither are good for our culture. I want the best surgeon.
Yeah.
Not the guy who took the easy courses to get an A, right? I want the guy who took the risks and learned and took time and figured it out. So I think Marzano's answer is, and the one I try to incorporate in my own is, when I'm here waiting for you to show me the skill, and I'm willing to give you credit for it when it happens. Now, there are some constrictions depending on where you work and who you teach with and who your principals and whatever, when they want grades in the book and if they'll let you change them later or not. But there is the technical ability, and I utilize it. You missed your paper. We moved on. It's unit 3. We're still in the first quarter, first semester. You want to hand in a paper from first quarter. I'll grade it. I'll look at it. I'll grade it. I'll give you feedback so that you can know you're a good writer, or that you can know you're getting to be a better writer, and you can see what you've accomplished and what you need to do next. Whether or not that grade goes in the book for a permanent grade, that's part of the game, though. Like I don't teach high school, so I don't have GPAs.
Yeah.
So I can be more flexible. But part of the high school grade is you did it in the time given.
Yeah.
And I think that if you were homeschooled, you wouldn't have that, And I think that in the distant future, we're going to get to where it's much more of a test out scenario, like your driver's license. You took it once, you passed it, you got it. You failed it 3 times, you got it on the 4th, you still got it.
Yeah.
I think when we get to that, we're going there, I think. So that's a long answer for a short question, which is don't shut the door on the kid.
Yeah.
Let them come in and work with you. Accept the paper late. Give it feedback. Whether the grade changes in the book or not is not always in the teacher's hands. But that's how you can hold people accountable, by saying, not yet, but I'm still here for you, right? This year, next year, call me, write me an email, send me a paper from college.
Yeah.
I worked, you've seen authors come in my room and talk about their books.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how long ago you were my student, send it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Krois.
Thank you, Mr. Coletti.
Thank you, guys. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, please give us a like on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to be on the show, or if you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please check us out. You can send me an email at thespedspace@gmail.com. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching.